Richardson, 35, taught third grade at Meadowbrook Elementary and raised her 7-year-old daughter Lily as a single mom in the quiet Midwestern town of Glendale. Sunday afternoons were sacred, reserved for unplugging from devices and reconnecting with one another. On this particular Sunday, they were at Riverside Park, a blanket laid beneath their favorite oak tree, a picnic basket between them filled with homemade sandwiches and fresh fruit. As Emily set out their lunch, she noticed an elderly man sitting alone on a bench roughly 30 yards away. His silver hair and beard were untidy, his clothes worn but clean. What stood out most were his eyes, sharp yet somehow distant, as if looking far past the park's edge. Emily observed as others in the park kept their distance. Parents redirected their kids with quiet warnings, joggers veered off their usual path. The man appeared to live in a bubble of solitude amid the busy park. "Mommy, why is that man all alone?" Lily asked, following her mother's gaze. Emily saw that the man had only a plastic water bottle, clearly refilled from the park's fountain. No food, no bag, not even a book, just himself, and whatever thoughts held his gaze on the horizon. "I think," Emily replied thoughtfully, "he might be hungry." "Should we share our lunch?" Lily asked, already picking out the best sandwich to give. As Emily walked toward the man, she became aware of the judgmental stares from nearby families. A woman at a nearby picnic table shook her head in clear disapproval. Someone muttered something about encouraging them. "Excuse me, sir," Emily said softly. "My daughter and I have more food than we need. Would you like to join us?" The man's gaze shifted gradually to her face, evaluating, perhaps questioning her intentions. After a brief pause, he gave a single nod. "We're just over there," Emily said, pointing toward their blanket. "Nothing fancy, just some sandwiches and lemonade." The man walked beside her back to the picnic area, moving with unexpected elegance for someone who looked so worn down by life. "I'm Emily, and this is Lily," she said, as he gently settled at the edge of the blanket. He nodded in recognition but didn't share his name. Emily didn't push. He accepted the sandwich Lily eagerly handed him, handling it with a respect that hinted kindness was a rare experience. He ate slowly, taking measured, cautious bites, his eyes occasionally sweeping the park's edges in what Emily recognized as a vigilant scan, a behavior familiar from her cousin who'd served in Afghanistan. At a nearby bench, a woman loudly remarked to her husband, "Can you believe she's letting her kid sit by someone like that? What kind of mother—" Emily acted as if she hadn't heard, pouring lemonade into a spare cup instead. "Mommy," Lily whispered, tugging her sleeve, "why does he look so sad?" Emily looked at their quiet visitor, noticing the slight shake in his hands and the stiffness in his shoulders. "Maybe," she replied gently, "because it's been a very long time since anyone has just sat beside him." "If you think a good person should be remembered, stay with us," she added. When the meal was over, the man reached into his frayed coat and slowly pulled out a folded fabric square, a patch, Emily saw, with worn embroidery that read, "4th Marine Recon Task Force Echo," circling an unfamiliar emblem. "My dad served in the Marines," Emily said, recognizing the military connection. He rarely spoke of it. The old man gave a nod, a hint of recognition passing over his face. His fingers moved over the stitching with seasoned ease. "As if reuniting with a piece of himself, I was there." He said, his voice hoarse from lack of use. "Then I wasn't anymore." His vague remark lingered between them. Emily didn't push further, realizing these were likely the most words he'd shared with anyone. In quite a while, Lily, with a child's blunt curiosity, pointed toward a scar peeking from his wrist. "Did that hurt you?" Emily began to scold. The man gently shook his head. "Long time ago," he said softly. "Sometimes what's outside heals quicker than what's inside." A man walking past with his family slowed down clearly, observing their odd group. He lifted his phone, pretending to snap a selfie with the park in frame. But Emily noticed he was secretly photographing them. Moments later, she saw him showing his screen to others smirking. The elderly man noticed as well. His shoulders tensed, his eyes taking on a faraway look. He started folding the patch back up. Getting ready to withdraw. Want some more lemonade before you leave? Emily offered, hoping to soften the mood. He took the cup, just as a jogger went by wearing a Marine Corps tee. He glanced their way, then looked again as he noticed the patch in the man's grip. He slowed his stride, glancing over his shoulder a few more times before picking up his pace again. Unbeknownst to Emily, the jogger Staff Sergeant Marcus Williams had identified the unique Task Force Echo emblem that very night. He shared in a private veterans forum. Think I spotted Colonel Reed in Riverside Park? Not totally sure. But that TF Echo emblem was clear as day. Can anyone in the Glendale area verify the photo snapped by the sarcastic bystander had already started circulating on local social media with the caption, "When single moms rescue stray veterans, you win at bad decisions." But once it hit a restricted military forum, it sparked a completely different response. "Oh my God, that's him," posted a retired general. "That's Jason Reed." Within the hour, the image was being scrutinized by intelligence analysts across several agencies. Phones began ringing. At the highest levels of military leadership, Colonel Jason Reed once led a top-tier recon unit during a confidential operation. Back in 2008, official documents claimed he and his entire squad were killed during the mission. But in truth, Reed had survived a devastating operation collapse. One that left him crushed by survivor's guilt and psychological scars so deep, he abandoned everything, unable to confront the families of his fallen men. For over a decade, he existed like a phantom drifting from city to city, declining veterans' assistance that could expose his identity. Picking up day. Work for cash. When he had to, his inner turmoil drove him into seclusion, while heated debate persisted in top-secret circles over the critical choice he made in the field. A decision some celebrated as brave and others branded as catastrophic. Now, after all these years, he was discovered not by government operatives or MPs, but by a third-grade teacher splitting a sandwich in a park, while Emily gathered their picnic. Unaware of the shockwaves spreading from their simple gesture of compassion, Reed quietly offered Lily a small wooden bird. He pulled from his jacket, perhaps the only thing he owned worth giving. In return for their kindness type, yes, if you've ever known a hero, forgotten only because they stayed quiet too long. Exactly 58 minutes after the picture started circulating within military circles, the recognizable hum of chopper blades disrupted the peace of the park. Parents looked skyward, puzzled as a Black Hawk descended and hovered over the nearby field. Families ducked away. As the aircraft lowered its altitude, the wind whipping through trees and scattering plates and napkins through the air. Emily gripped Lily tightly as 4 soldiers in uniform jumped out before the helicopter even landed behind them. A 5th figure in full dress emerged, a senior officer judging by the medals catching light on his chest. "What's going on?" Mommy Lily asked, her hand in her mother's "I don't know, baby." Emily replied truthfully. As the soldiers surveyed the remaining crowd with sharp precision, their eyes fixed on Reed, who had now risen to his feet, standing with military precision despite his rugged appearance. The officer moved toward him directly, halting at a calculated distance before offering a sharp salute. "Colonel Jason Reed, sir," he declared, his voice echoing through the now silent park. "Lieutenant Colonel David Hayes, Marine Special Operations Command, requesting permission to escort you home, sir." The park-goers who hadn't scattered at the helicopter's descent stood in stunned silence. Emily and Lily remained motionless beside their blanket, witnessing the scene unfold. Reed's change was subtle yet deeply significant. His shoulders pulled back, his chin lifted, his gaze, once distant, now locked in with piercing clarity. "I figured no one was still watching," Reed stated, his tone firmer than when he had last spoken to Emily. "10 years, sir," Hayes responded. "We never stopped." From the helicopter stepped another man, older, with a noticeable limp. Though dressed in civilian attire, he moved with a distinct military presence. As he neared Reed, his composure wavered. "Jason," he said, emotion cracking through his words. "We thought you were gone forever." "General Ryder," Reed acknowledged, his own voice faltering. "I'm not here as your superior," Ryder corrected. "I'm here as the father of Captain Michael Ryder, the last man you saved before the extraction failed." Understanding dawned on Emily's face. The mysterious man with whom they'd shared lunch wasn't just any veteran. He was someone significant, someone who had disappeared from a world that had never stopped searching for him. Two soldiers approached Emily, and Lily ma'am. One addressed her respectfully. "Your kindness today accomplished what military intelligence couldn't manage. In a decade, I didn't do anything special." Emily protested, "Just shared a meal." "You saw him," the soldier corrected. "Really saw him. When the rest of the world was looking past him, that matters more than you know." Lieutenant Colonel Hayes explained quietly that Reed had disappeared after a classified operation where difficult field decisions had saved some lives while others were lost, though officially cleared of any wrongdoing. Reed had been unable to forgive himself. He disappeared into anonymity, his survival known only to a select few, who had spent years tracking fragmented sightings across dozens of states. The mission details remain classified. Hayes told her. "But what I can tell you is that 8 families have spent 10 years not knowing the full truth of their loved ones." Final moments. Colonel Reed is the only one who can provide that closure. As Reed prepared to board the helicopter, he turned back to Emily and Lily. "Thank you," he said simply, the words carrying the weight of a decade. Silence. Emily nodded, understanding that sometimes the greatest gift is treating someone as the person they are, not the ghost they become. As the helicopter lifted off, a small crowd of remaining park-goers watched in stunned silence. The woman who had previously criticized Emily stepped forward cautiously. "I apologize for what I said," she confessed. "I assumed. I made assumptions." "We all do," Emily responded kindly. "But what matters is learning to see beyond them." Word of the intense park rescue spread fast through town. Journalists reached out to Emily for comments, but she refused every request. "This isn't my story to share," she said. "I was just present when someone needed a friend." Within a few days, the military hosted a closed ceremony at Quantico. Families of the fallen Task Force Echo members finally received the full account of their loved ones' bravery. Reed, still working through his past, had taken the first steps on the long road back to himself. A week later, Emily was sent an official letter from the Marine Corps, thanking her for demonstrating the values of empathy and humanity that reflect our nation's highest ideals. Included was a handwritten message from General Ryder. "You showed a wounded warrior that he still deserved fundamental human compassion. In doing so, you helped bring healing to 8 grieving families. Have you ever made the right decision when others walked away? Your story is important too." At their usual meeting spot, they discovered something new, a newly placed bench bearing a small bronze plate. The kindness bench, where a mother taught her daughter to do what's right. There were no military helicopters flying overhead that day, and no intense scenes played out. But near their picnic area, a new American flag had been raised, swaying quietly in the spring breeze. As they laid out their lunch, a courier approached with an envelope. Inside was a handwritten letter from Colonel Reed. "For 10 years I felt unseen. I made myself invisible, convinced I didn't deserve anything more. Then, on one ordinary Sunday, someone offered me not just a meal, but respect. The simple recognition that I was still human, despite everything. Sometimes salvation doesn't arrive in dramatic acts, but in an extra sandwich and a seat at the table. You helped me remember who I was when I had chosen to forget. For that, no thanks could ever be enough." The letter was signed with a simple, "A thankful Marine." Inside was a small silver trinket shaped like an oak leaf, a symbol of the tree beneath which they'd shared their food. As Lily played nearby, Emily observed how people were now using the park in new ways. The bench appeared to have become a quiet invitation. An older woman sat beside a young man, clearly battling addiction. A sharply dressed businessman rested next to a woman, arranging her few belongings in a shopping cart. Tiny connections bloomed where once only walls had stood. That night, Emily attached the charm to Lily's bracelet. "What's it mean, Mommy?" the girl asked. "It means," Remy answered, "that the bravest souls don't always wear uniforms anymore, but still deserve to be honored. Some heroes need no spotlight or salute, and sometimes the smallest gesture, just a seat at a table, can rally a whole army and heal years of unseen wounds." Have you ever seen a forgotten hero go unnoticed? Share your story. Because your voice might be the light someone else is waiting for. Subscribe for more powerful stories, where appreciation is never too late to arrive. Stay away from that man, sweetheart. A mother tugged her child away after spotting Emily beside an old man gray-bearded, his coat worn. Emily said nothing. She simply handed him half her sandwich. The golden evening sun embraced the three of them beneath the oak tree. Exactly 1 hour later, the rumble of helicopters broke the calm. A commanding officer stepped out, saluted, and declared, "We've been looking for you for 10 years, sir.